Hey everybody, it's ShadowStar here, and it is finally time for me to review Legends of Tomorrow Season 2. Normally at this point in the season, I decide to do a top 5 episodes. But Legends is so amazing that I've decided I'm just gonna rank the entire season from worst to best. But let me establish one quick thing. Just because an episode is near the bottom of the list doesn't mean it's a bad episode. Legends Season 2 is so amazing that pretty much every episode is great, but obviously some are better than others. Let's start with my 17th episode, Camelot. This episode isn't bad, and I still definitely enjoyed it, but there were certainly things that seemed out of place. For one thing, it just seemed rather jarring to first go to the future, and then just go to the past, even though we barely did anything in the future. And then a bit of the team starts arguing and, there's not much going on. Sure, but the pluses are we get a great fight scene between Ray and Damien Dark. We get Rip captured. There's some good moments for Amaya. So all in all, it's still a good episode, but I just kind of felt a little bit bored during all the Camelot stuff. It was just kind of generic medieval. Oh well. Next we have Compromised. And honestly, this one was still good. The plus side is it's a historical episode set during the INF Treaty, and I enjoy. And there were plenty of good Firestorm moments. There were plenty of good Ray moments because it's the episode where he figures out what he's going to do. There's also good Sarah moments. I mean, actually, there's a lot of good Sarah moments for Damien Dark, and it's the first time we get to meet another Legion member, so there's a lot, another JSA member. So, it's some good stuff for Amaya. But all in all, it's still not one of the more exciting ones. It's still a great Season 2 episode, but not as good as most of the others. Next, I'm going with the Justice Society of America, the second episode. Okay. Let's give it to the best part of the episode, is the opening fight scene. That opening fight scene where the JSA fights the Legends, absolutely incredible. The music, absolutely amazing. And getting to see some of the JSA members was cool, although we mostly only focus on like Rex Tyler, Amaya, and Nate's grandfather. But there was still some good moments. It was still a good episode for Nate early on. But all in all, yeah. Now we move on to Outlaw Country. Outlaw Country was a pretty good one. It's a much better Western episode than the Season 1 one, but I still quite enjoyed it more than I usually expect. Mainly because, it had some good moments for Nate, most of all. Nate was the highlight of this. And, I always enjoy the Outlaw episodes because you get a bit of that old Western feel and all that stuff, but still, Nate stopping the train was cool, and, those were all good moments, but other than that, I can't think of any standout moments. It's just kind of an average Season 2 episode, but still wonderful Legends. Now we go with Fellowship of the Spear. Now, the pros is, the ending is a great cliffhanger. We get some good moment. We get to see Snart, which is great, although then we get the arguing of, is Mick betraying the team? Is the team betraying Mick? We get to go back to World War One, which, I always enjoy historical moments. Actually, the World War One stuff for me is probably the highlight. I'm not that into Lord of the Rings, so I probably didn't get as much out of the whole J.R.R. Tolkien stuff as other people, but I still enjoy it. There are still good moments, but for being an exciting episode, there wasn't that much. For being the third last episode before all the stuff happens, it could have been a little more exciting, but there was still plenty of great moments. The opening was great, getting the spear was great, there were still lots of good moments. Moving on, we've got the Chicago Way. I absolutely love this one. I enjoy the whole, let's go 1920s gangsters, he's Al Capone, all that kind of stuff. It was a great episode. I love when they really, embrace it with the music and the settings and all that stuff. You really got to get into the time period. Also, this episode has some great moments for Eobard Thawne, because, you've got the moment where he tries to break onto the ship. There's some interesting Al Capone moments. This was a good episode. I'd say the highlight of this episode for me is Mick and Amaya. That was probably the highlight of the Chicago episode for me. Moving on, we've got Land of the Lost. This episode could have been better, but I'd say the highlight was going into Rip's mind, seeing human Gideon. Those were the highlights. And there were a few good moments like the dinosaurs and all that. There were a few comedic moments. It was a nice kind of middle of the ground episode before all the really chaotic stuff happens and after all the Legion stuff. So, I enjoyed it, but it definitely could have been better, but it was served as a good kind of middle of the road episode. Now you've got Out of Time, the first episode of the season, and breaking into my top 10. First off, the opening scene where they're like at that French house, amazing, absolutely amazing. The music is incredible, the fight scenes are incredible. It's an episode that just says, yes, legends are back, baby, and it's great. I absolutely love that. And then, you get the surprise of, ooh, Damien Dark, and then wham, Eobard Thawne's here, everyone's here. It's like we took all the worst stuff of season 1 and threw it in the bin, and then took all the best stuff. We get introduced to a great new character of Nate. There's so many good moments in Out of Time, and it's the perfect opening episode. There's a few kind of slower moments here and there, and some people don't like how we kind of start off with Oliver Queen, but still, great. Now we get Abominations. Now, some parts of this episode I don't care for. I don't care for the whole zombie stuff. There's a lot of parts of this episode I don't care for. The highlights obviously have to be that the highlights are not the fun parts. It's the serious parts. Abominations is the episode where Jax gets trapped in a cellar full of slaves. And you get that emotional moment where they're down there and they sing that song, and oh my god, it's incredible. And then that moment at the end when Jax and Stein are reflecting on everything. Great moment. Those are the moments that really sell this episode. The part where we say, no, yes, Legends is fun, but let's try and look at a really serious aspect of history. And it's rare that we do that. Usually Legends is all for fun and kind of ignoring it. I mean, sure, we've had Nazis and other stuff, but here it's like, no, slavery, and we're going to take it serious. Now we've got Moonshot, an absolutely spectacular episode. First off, Stein singing, beautiful, best comedic moment in the episode. Some really good Eobard Thawne moments when he's with Ray. Lots of good moments, actually. And then comedic moments with Ray and Eobard Thawne. Ray on the moon is a great moment. It's lots of really good moments. Honestly, this episode is really good between Stein singing and then the Eobard Thawne moments. It's absolutely amazing. I'm always here for Matt Letcher as Eobard Thawne. So, beautiful. Then we have, breaking into my 7th position, it's Turncoat. And this is an episode I hold to my heart because it's one of the first episodes I ever saw, obviously. And then, you get to see Evil Rip, which is great. You get to see Jax having to really be in charge, also great. Lots of comedic moments with, Ray and Mick both getting their own little comedic scenes. It's the start of the Nate and Amaya stuff, which can be hit and miss, but there's a lot of good stuff, and the ending is a nice Christmassy feel, even though it's in January. But it's an episode that really made me love the show, so gotta give it to that. Now moving into 6th position, it's Shogun, and I really love this episode. They really, really embrace the time period. I mean, whether it's stuff like Sarah versus all the samurais, and you get those great cliche moments of Sarah versus samurais, or moments of Mick with the ninjas. It's a great episode for Nate and Amaya, because it's Nate's first proper mission, and he gets to be on his own and do stuff, and then Amaya, it's her first proper team mission. There's lots of great moments for them. Ray has to destroy his suit. That sword fight scene with like Nate and Ray versus the Shogun was great. The Shogun was a good villain too because he was villainous but also had a slight hint of respect. I love that moment where like Sarah's fighting his second in command and then the Shogun doesn't interrupt until Amaya interrupts. It's a great moment, honestly, and I love like all the kind of like the music is always good, like when they're doing like the Japanese version of like the Ray Palmer theme or the Legends theme. So many good moments. It's an episode that just truly embraces a time period and is like quintessential Legends. It's not focused on a huge main plot. It's a good episode to get you into the characters. Moving into the top 5, we have the final episode, Aruba. It's still a great episode, but, I mean, it's not as good as a finale could be. We stand around and talking for a lot, and there's a lot of talking to ourselves. I mean, first we escape, and there's some fun moments with, like, the tiny wave rider. Those are good. And then seeing all the Earbard Thorns is great. It's the ending of Earbard Thorn. Oh, man, the final Matt Letcher episode. I'm going to miss him so much. And then, you get great moments like the team trying to get to the other Wave Rider where they're fighting, and then, like, you've got Damien and Malcolm and Snart all trying to stop them. Those are great moments too. There's lots of good moments, but it just could be slightly better for being a finale. There's lots of slow moments, and finales can be better than that, But still, moving on to my 4th spot and the second last episode, Doom World. First off, highlight has to be Earbard Thorn as a villain. Beautiful. Once again, you're going to hear me compliment him all through season 2. Him as a villain is so great, especially at the end. That fight scene where it's like the Legion and the Legends versus Earbard versus each other. Oh, so many good moments, whether it's Sarah versus Malcolm or like Nate and Damien versus like Earbard. So many good moments. Getting to see like all the different aspects of the alternate world is great. Honestly, this episode has no bad moments in me. The only kind of bad moments is maybe the back and forth between like Mick and Snart and what do you do about it. But still, so many good comedic moments in this. Moving on to the top 3, we have Invasion. Now, some might say this doesn't count because it's a crossover, and if that's fair, just count this as a top 16 and ignore Invasion. But obviously, you gotta love Invasion. That final fight scene is absolutely incredible. Beautiful. The music in that fight scene, I've listened to it 1,000 times. It's amazing. And there's lots of good moments beforehand. Honestly, it's the best part of the crossover for so many reasons. And it was the first crossover I ever saw. And it's like, I only saw the first time I watched it, I only saw this episode. So I'm like, yeah, I gotta watch these other shows, and I love it. It made me realize, yeah, these shows are truly connected, and I want to watch them. Moving on to my second place. These last 2 are episodes that hold near and dear to my heart. Raiders of the Lost Ark. An episode that was quite literally the first Legends episode I ever saw. Obviously, I eventually went back and watched the whole thing, but this was the first thing I ever saw of Legends, and I fell in love. I loved the characters. I loved how fun they were. I loved the show didn't take itself seriously. I loved the villains. There's lots of good moments. There's lots of nice homages with with George Lucas. There's lots of good comedic moments, and you really I fell in love with the characters so much in this episode. These last 2 positions are more biased than anything else, and I'm gonna just accept that. But I have to say it, without these 2 episodes, I wouldn't be a Legends fan or an Arrowverse fan, probably. It's what made me fall in love with the show. The characters were all so good. Oh, and of course, this episode gives us the first appearance of Phil, Fake Rip. Oh, I love him. He's so beautiful. He's so comedic. He's so fun. I love him. And if you couldn't have guessed, judging by that, the best episode for me is Legion of Doom. First off, it's an episode where we focus on the villains, so you get a lot of great Damien and Malcolm moments, whether it's them versing each other, them versing Thorn, them working together to stop the Black Flash. The moment where you see, like, fear in Earbard Thorn's face, oh, it's beautiful. And then, you get great moments between them. And, of course, you add in Fake Rip, a.k.a. Phil. Still, lots of good moments between them. The banter between them and the villains is great, like the moment where Damien and Malcolm are fighting and Phil stops them. Oh, so good. There's so many good moments. It's all about the villains, and it's just spectacular. Who doesn't love a villain episode? Who doesn't love Legends of Tomorrow? And this list may have seemed biased and a bit messy, and this list was very difficult to put together because honestly, Season 2 was just spectacular. It was the reason why I didn't want to just do a top 5, because I figured, how could I honestly decide? But either way, yeah, it's beautiful. This is it. Anyway, I've absolutely loved Season 2 of Legends, and yeah, I will eventually watch Season 3. I always can't decide whether I love Season 2 or 3 more. I still say Season 3 is my favourite, but we'll have to see. Both are spectacular. Until next time, I will eventually do more top 5s and episode ratings and other things as well. See you next time, guys.